What's up, everybody? This is episode number 39 of Rolling with Reason. My name is Will Gerals, and on this episode, we are going to talk about this crazy week that I had that I can't quite wrap my head around. And I guess I'm just going to kind of throw some thoughts out there and see what you guys feel about it. It's still going to kind of stay the same as what we normally do here, but in this case, I guess I was really traversing. I'm just traversing, I feel like, some identity things I don't understand. What am I doing? Why am I forgetting stuff? What's the meaning of this thing called life? Ugh. It was crazy this week. So, for starters, let's talk about this. Not this, but this guy. This guy right here, Dead Simple Python. This book, it is amazing. A technical book. If you have dabbled in the programmatic language called Python and you're a beginner and you're trying to level up, this is the book to do it. Let me say that first and foremost. However, I will say, like as a big note and kind of as one of those maybe I should have known this before I started reading it, even though I knew like what was happening. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of extra time on my hands this week. As far as getting to work with programs and stuff. And so, what I told myself was, I'm taking on a lot of endeavors, a lot of bigger projects coming up, and I feel like I should really kind of maybe broaden my horizon as far as my vocabulary is concerned and just as far as my Python skills in general are concerned. And so, with that thought in place, I was like, all right, we're just going to read this book. This book... And let me check real quick, just to get a good general idea real quick. It's about 630 pages and is a technical book. I made it to about the end of chapter 12, beginning of chapter 13, and I'm here to tell you, that's roughly about 300 and something pages, 350. That's a lot of technical, more advanced technical material at that to cover in such a short amount of time. And let's talk about retention for a moment. I don't think my retention, or a matter of fact, a lot of people's retention can be high enough to withstand or retain that much information consumed within a short period or a short amount of time. And so I don't want to say, and I hesitate to say waste of time, because it definitely wasn't. But it was definitely a learning lesson that cramming is cramming, and deep retention learning is deep retention learning. Now, every kind of type of learning has its place, sure. I'm not going to dispute that with myself, but what I will say is I indefinitely felt the kind of residual effects of burnout. So, I wasn't quite sure if burnout was a thing. I didn't think it was a thing, really. I mean, I knew it existed, but I don't think I ever really encountered it to the same depth or same degree that I unfortunately just brought upon myself over this week. And so reading that massive amount of material, also putting Python scripts and stuff together and refreshing my memory in the same notion. Because although I'm using a framework that uses the Python programming language to be able to build web applications, actually writing Python scripts or programs in and of itself is its own forte, its own kind of secret sauce, if you will. And that is different. It's just abstractly different. So trying to cognitively build programs with Python and then also refresh your memory in Python and teach yourself abstract new vocabularies and recognitions with the programming language, also on top of learning new material in and of itself in the language, was catastrophic for what I felt like was my brain towards the end of the weekend. I'm also a little older now. That's kind of cool. For anybody that knows me, I'm doing this thing, but I don't really do the media thing. So I'm just kind of out here putting this stuff out in the world, and then like nobody really knows who I am or what I do, I guess. And so it was my birthday Friday. That was cool, and we just went out and got some dinner. Other than that, it was reading this massive book, and so that was cool, and I had a good time. But then after that, I think it was Saturday, I started to realize, I'm kind of tired and I don't want to read the book. And it's not because I didn't want to read the book. I want to read the book. I think I was reading so much and there was so much going on, and I didn't physically do it, right? That is a key component to a lot of stuff, right? We read, and then we implement deeper retention, right? There's kind of like this kinetic differentiating factor, I believe, whenever we're learning something. And the same thing can be said for when you're taking notes or when you're doing all kinds of stuff, or just the general thought. If you make something work in that same notion of like, here's your deadlines. By the way, I have a whole whiteboard of just like deadlines that I gave myself to really try and get this task done, and I feel like I mentally almost died at the end, but it's fine. Nonetheless, I decided once I got to the end of chapter 12 or the beginning of chapter 13, maybe the middle of chapter 13, I can't remember. I started to get to what is called binary. For those of you that know a little bit about computers, there's these things called bits, which are in relation to the switches for your computer, and then they map out to numerical values. And then we have the decimal, which uses the base 10 system. Then we have a binary, which is kind of a compressed decimal. It's easier for the system. And then there's also hexadecimal, and then there's also octals. So I was reading and learning that stuff because I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a bunch about it. And so I know a little bit more about it now, I guess, as far as the conversion goes. It's like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, that sort of thing. And it kind of like doubles up from there. And then you have the hexadecimals, which is like 8, 16, or 16, 32, et cetera, stuff like that. But nonetheless, sorry, getting a little sidetracked here. It was a lot, okay? It was a lot. And so when I got to the end of that kind of chapter and that kind of, and again, it's not just learning this concept of kind of binary and doing bit operations. They're called bit wranglers, by the way, if you guys didn't know. And there's another example of the context of the book that expresses that I think is tremendously beneficial. Like, it just teaches you vocabulary and stuff that maybe you didn't know. But moving along, the operations and some of the nuances of the language in and of itself. So Python in and of itself implements the negative integer differently than what it is expressed within these binary systems, right? So it would actually be inverted in a way. And so what I mean by that is, so if you had the number 42, it may be reading out something like 00101010, right? That's the binary representation of what is 42. And then let's say you wanted to make that negative 42, so you would just flip all those numbers in place. So then it would be 11010101. But in actual, I think, bit or byte mathematics, binary mathematics, the representation of that isn't actually by a negative symbol. Like, it doesn't get interpreted like in the computer in that same way. What's happening there is actually they do this thing called the twos comparison or component or comparable, something like that, I believe. And so what happens is essentially you want to insert a 1 to flip the digit, right? So in our case, since it was 0, 1 right at the end, if we tried to insert a 1, that would make that first one a 0, and then we would move over to carry the 1, and then since it was 0, 1, it would now be 0, and we carried a 1 over, and then we flip that 0 to a 1. So then it would read 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 0. And then that would be the negative representation of what is 42. Now, in Python, however, it still uses the positive representation of what is the binary format of 42, which in this case, I believe, if my memory is serving me correctly, would be it would be 00101010. That is the positive representation of what is the integer 42 within the binary system that correlates to the base 10 decimal system of your computer, which maps to the switches and stuff. And then there's also the slots in the memory, and then usually it kind of happens in a canonical order or a sequential order where memory is allocated to these slots, and they're given the hexadecimal values that correlate to that, which if you thought things weren't complicated enough with me just saying a bunch of ones and zeros or zeros and ones, then you start adding letters into the system. So you have 0 through 9, then you have A through F, and then you have 16, which denotes is denoted by the number 10. Why? I honestly just can't remember. This is all to come back to the point of like, I can remember a lot, but listen, that was chapter 12 or 13. I can't remember which one it was. There was 10 other chapters, 11 other chapters before that. And I'm here to tell you, my brain, it was cooking. It was cooking all right, to the point of where like I was just trying to hang out and relax, and I couldn't. Like my brain was like zombie mush. I'm not sure what was going on there. I'm not sure how to feel about it. Work on a positive note, however, just moving right along because that's usually what we do here. So that's out of the way. Work has been going pretty good. It's going good because we got a little bit of time off. Got to allocate our time towards that. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Arnold's classic video done just because we were doing so much Python, and I'm not even like I cannot express it enough. And plus the burnout. So this is, I guess we're not done with that. I guess we're still talking about it. The burnout induced from me reading that much material, technical material with that. I highly recommend, if you guys haven't done anything like that before, just go ahead and do it. Go ahead and test your patience, test your grind, because I thought it was going to be a breeze, and I'm here to tell you, I could have kept. Here's another problem too. I think there's different ways to read and different kind of positional arguments for reading, and what I mean by that is like you could do what is like a fast pass, or you could do like a deep retention pass, but it depends on specifically what you need, and everybody's use case is a little bit different for the material they're reading and how they utilize it to be able to get better outcomes. And for me, I felt like I wasn't reading it to just to kind of like get an idea of the material. I mean, I was to some degree for other aspects of what I'm starting to immerse myself in here recently, but I feel like the bigger takeaway was I should be learning this stuff with a deep sense of like retention and actually building out those programs systematically throughout the book, because the book actually does a good job of sequentially going in order from chapter 1 all the way to, I believe, what is chapter 21. But nonetheless, this is to come back to, I think there's different types of reading, and there's different books for different types of readers, and maybe you have a different scenario for a book where maybe you're just trying to get an idea versus trying to retain it forever. And I think in my specific case, I feel like I want to retain forever. And so I feel like, with that being said, I just couldn't, I couldn't just like go on reading it and then feeling like I wasn't retaining it. So that was kind of a problem there. But to come back to the burnout thing, because that's what I was going to say about the Arnold's video, is like I felt so dead that I thought to myself, man, I want to do that video, but I probably shouldn't even try. And I didn't try because I literally felt cooked. And just now, in a moment of, I believe, just another deadline and sheer excitement of expressing this kind of pain to the other human beings that happen to torture themselves by listening to this content, I wanted to just share it with you that that's how, like, my brain it wasn't. So, there's limits. Know your limits. Take your breaks, right? Take your breaks, take your little walks. I was getting to the point to where I was just reading, and I knew that I was supposed to take like a scheduled 30-minute break, like a lunch or something, and I just pushed forward. That did not help me in the long run, in the slightest whatsoever. And it's troubling. It's troubling to say the least. But I feel like that's the biggest thing that went on this weekend. I know I said it was my birthday and everything. I mean, that kind of is what it is. 26 now. That's kind of cool, I guess. Went for a couple runs throughout the week. That was nice. One run was like 3.4. Another one was like 1.5. Another one 4.6. So those were good runs. I think I hit my fastest 5K time, which I should also preface and say I like running. I really enjoy running, but I've been having problems with my feet, my legs. You guys know that. So it was nice just to get back in the saddle and run a little bit. And that made me feel definitely a little bit better, especially after those long like reading sessions. Or I would like go like halfway through the day, run, and then come back, and then I would just be like adamant about reading and just consuming that material. But again, it was the retention thing for me, and just kind of like pushing through stuff and knowing that I wasn't retaining it to the degree that I wanted to. But nonetheless, I was running. Running was going really good. I think I hit like a 33-minute 5K. So that was pretty good. That's pretty respectable. I think that's pretty average for a guy my size and my age. So I will definitely take that. That's gonna be a win for me, for sure. But again, the legs, feet, ankles, Achilles, they are just fried right now. I'm not really sure why, but it's okay. Moving on from that, I did factor meals again this week. They were delicious, but instead I elected to meal prep today instead of doing the reorder of the factor meals. Why is that? I'm really not sure. It just felt more affordable, if I'm going to be quite honest. I think if you can do stuff by yourself and it still turns out to be of the same value, if not a little bit better because you get better proportions, I think, realistically, maybe do that for yourself. But I did spend a lot of time today with my significant other just trying to get that done. Cleaning and prepping and just the whole nine. It was an experience, I guess. So, but depending on how much time you're doing that and how much time it takes you to naturally like cook a meal in the evening, that kind of depends on how well that outcome is going to be, depending on somebody's circumstance. In that case, though, I think it's going to work out really good. It kind of aligns, not kind of, it does. It aligns with my goals in terms of longevity go. So that's great. I'm really happy about that. I got really burnt out this week. I got tired toward the end of the week. I'm bouncing back by making this video. I was happy, excited to make this video of rolling 39. Rolling with Reason, episode 39. What is happening? It's happening. That thing that's happening that you just keep doing and you just keep plugging away, like, this is it. Like, this is one of the releases, and I like it. I like it a lot. The Arnold's videos are the same, except they're more creatively intertwined, and there's a process there to want to make it the best possible, and that takes a cognitive type of contribution, and if you are not in the mindset or in that headspace, I think it's very difficult to put out something that you love, that you're proud of. I guess you take pride in your work, that sort of thing. So, but nonetheless, I think that's going to be a perfect place to stop. I just I had a crazy week as far as burnout was concerned, and I feel like I'm bouncing back towards this Monday that is right around the corner. If you guys listen to this on your commutes, you guys are listening to it when you're doing dishes, you guys are listening to it when you're yelling at your kids. Maybe you don't have, I don't know, whatever. I don't judge. Listen, I have made your day easier. Me just venting to this camera made my day easier. That's for sure, without a doubt. I'm learning. I'm learning how to learn and retention, all that stuff. So, this book with that book, and how to read this book, and then form that book, and then there's also a whole other stack of books back here that I care about so much, and a lot of stuff going on right now. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. If you did, this is episode Reason, Rolling with Reason. This is episode number 39. Roll with Reason. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate it. Leave some comments. Peace.
Thanks for listening. Stay resilient, embrace the struggle, and keep moving forward.